Hey, what's up you guys? Today I am doing my March wrap up. I know I'm a little bit late. I have been feeling a bit overwhelmed with the thought of doing this wrap up because I actually had a really good reading month in March and read quite a lot of books, but then that means that I have a lot of books to talk about, so I keep putting it off and I've decided I'm just going to talk about like the highlights. Like I'm going to skip a few books I don't really have that many thoughts about. But yeah, a couple updates. I'm currently not on Twitter, so I'm still going to put my little Twitter thing in the bottom corner, but I'm currently not on Twitter as of the time I'm filming this video. Um, if you know, you know. Twitter, I hate it. It's so negative. Anyway, and also this should be my March wrap up. Well, no, it shouldn't really. I have about 200 pages left of this. It's Sylvia Plath biography. It is about 1,100 pages, but about 200 pages of that is notes and references. So I'm currently at page 700 out of like 900-ish of like actual text, and I'm absolutely loving it. And I just want to brag about the fact I'm actually reading it like almost every day. I've been basically doing a chapter a day when I can. Obviously, some days I can't read because of work or I'm busy and stuff, but yeah, I'm really loving this. But other than that, I want to talk to you about the books I actually finished in March. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, please subscribe, all the usual stuff. Let me know your thoughts in the comments of any of these books, and let's start talking about book number one. So the first book I'm going to talk about is The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks. If you watched my Scottish book recommendations video, I already talked about this in that one. I just finished it then. But basically this is kind of a horror psychological novel about a young boy who has killed other children and also loves torturing animals. Specifically, actually not even specifically, he just enjoys torturing animals in general. And we're basically getting like a kind of dive into his mind and how his mind works, and there's like some family secrets with his brother and his dad and stuff like that, and basically the whole family's kind of messed up, and I was kind of mixed on this. It was okay. It was Ian Banks' first ever novel, I believe, and it's supposed to be really shocking, but to be honest, it's just like over the top animal abuse, and like it was disturbing, but because there's so much of it, I kind of got numb to it, and I was like, okay, just more animal abuse. It did have like the kind of dark humor, black humor type side to it, with like the kids he murdered. Like they were kind of humorous in like a dark way. And the narrator's voice was interesting. But overall, I just didn't think the book was that good. I wouldn't really recommend it. Like, I think it's one of those ones where if the premise sounds interesting and you like disturbing books, I'd probably say give it a shot, just because I think it's kind of a little bit of a classic in that sense, but yeah, overall I wasn't really a fan. A book that really surprised me was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the World. I always thought this was like a middle grade kind of adventure novel. That's not what it's about at all. It goes into so many like deep topics about like family, generational trauma and racism and identity and like, you know, sexual identity and racial identity and just so many other things, like friendship, love, heartbreak, so many different topics, and actually absolutely loved it. It was not what I expected at all. It is not middle grade, it is definitely like YA, and it basically just follows these two boys who become friends, and their friendship makes them discover so much more about themselves and each other. And then it's an LGBT book, so I don't think it's a spoiler to say, like, it's pretty obvious, like, they do end up at the end having some feelings for each other. And yeah, I just thought it was like so cute, but then also so like interesting and so much deeper than I expected, just because on a surface level I just literally thought it was about these two boys that were going to like go on a physical adventure to like discover some secrets, and that's not what it's about at all. Like the secrets are all like inner thoughts and inner identity and stuff, so I loved that. I thought like the writing was really beautiful at times. There were some really nice passages, some really nice quotes you could pull from this book, and I was just so impressed with it overall, just because it's not what I expected. I will say I don't think I'm going to read the sequel, just because I've heard some really mixed things about the sequel based on people who absolutely loved the first book and then just found the second one to be kind of boring. Not boring, I don't know, just disappointing. So I don't know if I'm going to read the second one, but yeah, I was really, really impressed by this, and I've seen it on BookTube so many times, but for some reason like the premise has just never fully went in my brain. Like I just made up my own premise, and I would say it's definitely worth the hype, definitely worth reading, and yeah, really strongly recommend this one. Another book that I strongly recommend is Blue Haven by Lisa King. This is a sci-fi thriller, and I was not really sure how that was going to work. I was like, how do these two genres come together? And the way it did was so clever and so interesting. So the very basic premise, obviously I'm trying to avoid any spoilers because it is a thriller, is that this woman moves to this highly exclusive, very expensive private island resort where basically the whole thing is like you'll just be in peace, like there's just you and a few neighbors, and you basically have like anything you could ever want. There's like this amazing like shopping complex with all these different restaurants of like every type of food and stuff like that. And then she starts to discover that maybe everything on this island isn't as it seems, and that is exactly where I'll leave it. And just for that premise, you're like, how does like the sci-fi come into this? But I would just say trust it. It is so good. The writing was so like quick paced, so captivating. I was so engaged the whole time. Like all the characters were quite fun as well. There was like quite a few like different characters on the island, and you know, some of them are more mysterious and other ones just like friendly, but there's like a strong kind of horror aspect at times to this novel as well, you know, that comes in with the thriller side. And yeah, I just really love this, and I definitely want to check out the author's other book. When I read this, I will say it was on NetGalley, so if this sounds interesting, head over there and see if it's still on there, and then you can get it for free. But I think it's definitely worth your money, like as an ebook, especially. Like I was really impressed with this, and I haven't read that many thrillers, as you might know. Gillian Flynn is one of my favourite authors, and she's like the only author that I've read like a lot of thrillers from. So, and I feel like she's like the queen. Obviously, I've not read that many others, but I just love her books. And this was like a strong contender that I really enjoyed this as well. And it's made me want to expand into more thrillers, because for such a long time I was like, okay, I love Gillian Flynn, but I'm too scared in case like no one else can do it like her. And yeah, I just need to give other authors a chance at writing thriller books, because I was really impressed by this. And I will say it is published by like a really small publisher, like a quite indie one, so that's obviously good as well. I love supporting like smaller publishers and self-published books, so that's a bonus as well. But yeah, definitely recommend this one. Highly recommend. Another book around the same kind of, this isn't a thriller, it's a horror, but I read We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix, and I wasn't really sure what this one was about. I haven't heard that much about it compared to, you know, like Horror Store or Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires or My Best Friend's Exorcism. This one kind of is like under the radar, and I understand why. This was the most disappointing out of his books for me that I've read so far. It follows this woman who was in a band, and the band sign a contract to kind of become more famous and successful, I'm pretty sure it is, and she refuses to sign it, and then, you know, the horror aspects explode from there. There's like demons and stuff like that, and basically, I don't think it's a spoiler, like the contract they were signing is basically them signing their souls away. So, I mean, that's literally the title. I'm like, is that a spoiler? It's the title of the book. Yeah, I just thought this was not that great. I did like the characters. We basically followed two main characters, but I just thought it was a little bit messy, a little bit convoluted. I didn't find the horror aspects that interesting in this one compared to some of his other books. There was some sequences that did like really gross me out, like there's a whole underground sequence, but overall I just wasn't really feeling anything from this. It hasn't really left a lasting impression on me, which, you know, other books by him have. So yeah, I would say if you like Grady Hendrix' other books, it's definitely worth reading this one just to be like, okay, you know, like complete his bibliography, because he doesn't have that many, but it's not one I would recommend starting out with. Also, it talks a lot, so because this woman's in a band, they're like a some subgenre of rock band, so it talks a lot about rock music and like stuff, and there's a lot of references, and it kind of grated on me a little bit just because I don't care about that type of stuff at all. So at first it's a little bit interesting, but then like as the book goes on, you're like, stop talking about these other like real life bands and stuff. Like it kind of felt like an essay at times, just on like the history of rock, which I guess if you're into that, like you'll like it, but for me, and I feel like general audiences, it was a little bit too much. A book that I want to mention, but I don't actually have too much to say about because it's a sequel, is Beyond the Fire by Kayla Davenport. She is a fellow booktuber, and her first book is Beyond the Gates. And the first one, the basic premise is that it's about these characters who, well, there's this government facility for these kids who have powers and stuff like that. And they, some of them, obviously not all of them, discover that the government really isn't to be trusted, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And then they start to rebel against the government. And that's the first book. The second book expands on this. Obviously, it is a wide dystopian series, so it's kind of along the same lines as The Hunger Games or Divergent and stuff like that. And the standout for me is the characters. I love the characters. I love like the romance between Emma and Gillian. I love like the whole found family aspect. That's a really big thing that I love in books. And this one has, oh my god, I'm out of breath because I've run out of lupus. Yeah, I love the found family aspect of this book. It's such like a fun trope to me, and all the characters in this are really fun and interesting. They all have their little quirks, and you know, they act like real teenagers, I would say, as well. Like, they do bicker, they do fight a little bit. It's not all just like, oh, we love each other so much, but at the end of the day they do all come together, and I just love that. We also see one of the characters' real life family. That's a whole interesting aspect that I don't want to go into because it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I really like that. And this second book focuses on our friends, our main characters, discovering a secret rebellion that's also fighting against the government, and they discover that, you know, the plans are like the control that the facility they were in has of the world is so much greater than they could ever imagine. So yeah, I'm trying to be vague because I don't want to spoil anything, but I really love this series and I cannot wait for book 3. I then read another self-published book in March, and that was The Witches of the White Woods by M.J. Thompson. And this is a YA book about this brother and sister who are on the run from enemies that they don't really understand, because the sister has magic powers, and then she is taken by these witches, and the brother then has to team up with someone else to try and save his sister. And I really loved this. I, again, thought this would be more of like a middle grade type feel, but it's very YA. It was so creative. The Whitewoods themselves are like a character. They have like such vibrant settings, and the whole thing is like the witches, like dark magic is kind of corrupting the forest, so like all the animals are corrupted and strange. They're all like very mutated and stuff, and like the plants as well, so that causes like a lot of trouble for our main characters, and just brings a lot of vibrancy and excitement to the scenes in the forest, and you never really know what to expect. And then the witches themselves were quite fun characters. They were dark and dangerous, but they also had like a humorous side to them, which I really like. And yeah, I was really impressed by this as well. I'd had it on my Kindle for a while, and I was just looking for something easy to read, and I started this, and it was really good. Like, I would really recommend it. Again, if you're into YA, if you're into like witches and magic and stuff like that, this is definitely a book for you. The last book I'm going to talk about today is Laughter in the Dark by Vladimir Nabokov, and this is the third Nabokov book I've read, I believe. And this is the most straightforward of his that I've read so far, but it was like still excellent. I really loved it. There was so much like beautiful poetic prose that is just so like effortless and natural for him, and which is why like I love him. I just love his writing style. But this one is about an older man who falls in love with a younger girl, kind of similar to Lolita, except this girl is legal, she is an adult, and she is basically very aware of what she can get from this man, and he kind of destroys his whole life, like throws his wife and his kids away for this girl, and she just like using him for money and connections and stuff like that. And it obviously then leads to basically his demise, and I again loved it. Not even that much for the plot, like that was fun, and I loved like the characters. I thought they were interesting and stuff, but just like Nabokov's prose and stuff like that is so beautiful. Literally cannot complain about it ever. And I again just really want to dive into his whole bibliography. Like, there's so many books by him that I want to read, and I can't wait to continue on reading by all of his books. So that was a little March wrap up. If you want to know what other books I've read in March, my Goodreads is always linked down below. I write a review for every single book, so make sure to follow me or add me as a friend on there if you want to see my other reviews. I actually try and write like proper reviews, so I would say go down there and add me as a friend. I also made a Letterboxd account recently, so I've started reviewing movies, which I'm not that good at, I don't think yet, but it's kind of fun, so I'll have that linked down below as well, and all my other stuff is also linked down below. If you have any thoughts on any of these books, let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and please subscribe for new videos coming up soon. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video.